The story surgeon is back. I've become such a better analyst and writer that I no longer feel like my first video on the Chunin exams arc did it justice. I'll use all of my experience developing story theory in order to break down just how great this arc is and why it is truly one of the greatest arcs of all time. I'll be starting with 3-act structure. The Chunin exams has spectacular structure and is basically split into several engaging mini-movies. The moments I'll be pointing out are the opening, inciting incident, first act break, midpoint, second act break, and climax. I've explained these in my story theory videos, so if you're confused about any of this, watch those. In part A, the opening is Team 7 returning from missions. The inciting incident is the Chunin exams recommendations. The first act break is finding the correct room. The midpoint is the Rock Lee fight. This lets the characters know that there are people much stronger than them. The second act break is the written exam. The climax is Naruto's speech. That ends part A. Part B opens with Anko's explanation of the Forest of Death. The incident is Anko opening the gates. The first act break is Team 7 versus the imposter. The midpoint is Orochimaru appearing and fighting Sasuke. They lose their scroll after this. The second act break is the fights against Team Dozu and Team Oboro. The climax is Team Oboro's defeat. The resolution is Iruka's speech. That ends part B. Part C opens with the rules of the tournament explained. The first act break is the preliminary fights up until Hinata versus Neji. The midpoint is Hinata's loss. The second act break is Lee versus Gaara, and the climax is Lee's loss. The resolution is Kabuto versus Kakashi. That ends part C. Part D opens with Kakashi giving Naruto to Ebisu. The incident is Jiraiya interrupting. The first act break is Naruto training to summon a toad. The second act break is Jiraiya pushing Naruto off a cliff. The climax is Naruto summoning Gamabunta. The resolution is Gaara trying to kill Lee. That ends part D. Part E opens with the bracket changing. The first act break is the tournament beginning to Sasuke versus Gaara. The midpoint is Orochimaru executing his plan. The second act break includes all of the Konoha versus Suna fights. The climax is Naruto defeating Gaara. The Chunin exams arc has 5 perfectly paced mini-movies in one arc. Some key moments, like inciting incidents, are occasionally skipped because the story is still ongoing and doesn't need another one of them. The second part of this video will be analyzing the pacing of the arc. To really understand pacing, I'll be breaking down beats, plot cycles, and scenes. In the second episode of Story Theory, I explain scenes and beats. The story is fast-paced when it goes through multiple beats in a short amount of time. Additionally, as I explained in my But Therefore video, each scene should be connected by but or therefore. In my video on the hero's journey, I explain my plot cycles. Furthermore, in my video, How to Make a Plot Entertaining, I showed that an entertaining story has at least one plot cycle per scene or sequence. With all of that laid down, I'll begin my breakdown of the scenes and plot cycles of the Chunin exams. I probably won't go into deep detail like I did with AOT because this arc is long, but I might pick one scene to really dive into. What I'll be paying attention to is how nearly every scene has some kind of plot cycle to keep the story interesting. The arc starts in chapter 34. The start of this chapter establishes the personal issues and struggles that the characters will be facing in this arc. The pacing is slow, but that's expected of an opening. Konohamaru shows up and goofs around, but this leads into the introduction of the Sand Siblings, some of the major antagonists of the arc. Team 7 versus the Sand Siblings is the first cycle. At the same time, Kakashi is going through his own cycle against Iruka. Iruka doesn't think the Rookie 9 are ready, while their current teachers do. The conflict between the kids gives exposition for the exams, develops the antagonists, and even sets up Team Dozu. Kakashi gets the application forms as a result of the previous scene he was in. Here, the trio reflect on their struggles again. The next scene introduces a new cycle, which is getting into the room. Sasuke solves it and shows another part of his character. Earlier, Sasuke criticized Sakura for being worse than Naruto and realized that she was acting differently afterwards. So here, he praises her to lift her morale. Another cycle is started when the kid tries to attack Sasuke, but it's quickly ended when Lee intervenes. The end of the conflict sets up Team Guy. Immediately after, the next scene is a new cycle, Rock Lee versus Team 7. The cycle develops Lee and Guy's characters. It also builds on the internal struggles that Team 7 is facing. The next scene is in chapter 39, when the trio enters the correct room. Characters are introduced and Kabuto gives some exposition. This leads into a cycle of Kabuto versus Oto Ninja. This cycle is interrupted by Ibuki and the proctors showing up. Here, they set up the next plot cycle, which is the written exam. The exam starts in 41. I will analyze this exam later, but you probably already know how great it is. There are several mini cycles of characters struggling to answer the questions, but then eventually cheating to get their answers. The exam ends in chapter 43. There is a resolution before Anko arrives with the next plot cycle. The conflict introduced is the Forest of Death. She explains the rules in 45, and the test begins in 46. The major cycle is surviving the forest and getting the scrolls, but under that are many mini cycles. The first is quick and is Team Kurenai defeating a team. The next cycle starts on the very next page and is the battle against the Naruto imposter. Once the cycle is resolved, the next one with Orochimaru is already being built up. A few pages later, another Naruto imposter appears and Sasuke figures it out again. This is all in chapter 46. Meanwhile, Naruto is facing his own cycle against the giant snake. Sasuke and Sakura vs Orochimaru and Naruto vs the snake are happening concurrently. After Naruto defeats the snake, he joins his allies to continue the Orochimaru cycle. Naruto and Sasuke take turns fighting, and it ends with the team being defeated. Right after, Anko vs Orochimaru is another plot cycle executed. About 3 pages later, Sakura vs Team Dozu is set up and executed. Meanwhile, Lee has a cycle with the squirrel and the bomb, which eventually leads him to Sakura. Team Asuma has a mini-cycle that lets them avoid Neji. The Team Dozu fight has many combatants entering and exiting, but eventually ends with the Konoha ninja winning. After this, Anko has a quick cycle with tigers. This leads into exposition about Gaara that transitions into a flashback relating to him. Team Kurenai witnesses a mini-cycle between the siblings and an enemy team. Chapter 60 starts with an introduction of how Team 7 is before leading into the first cycle, which is reading what's inside the scroll. This is concluded by Kabuto stopping them. Kabuto gives some exposition after joining them before they are trapped in a genjutsu, starting another plot cycle. Team 7 fights Team Oboro. After this is concluded, Iruka gives his monologue to conclude part B of the arc. There's almost never a dull moment in this arc. The story is constantly keeping itself engaging by almost always having some kind of plot cycle in action. The only moments that could be considered dull are the expositions and monologues, but those moments are interesting because they are providing answers to questions that we are actually invested in, or they're developing characters, or they're executing a victorious monologue to resolve the climax that just finished. The scenes and sequences also seamlessly transition into one another. There is always a clear line of causation and continuity. I could stop here, but I won't. Part C of the arc starts in chapter 65. Exposition for the next stage is given and the characters decide whether they will continue in the next chapter. Once the fights start, it's back-to-back cycles again. Each fight is its own cycle, starting with Sasuke vs Yoroi. The next is Shino vs Saku. During this fight, Kakashi vs Orochimaru also happens. Next is Kankuro vs Tsurugi, followed by Sakura vs Ino, then Temari vs Tenten, Shikamaru vs Kin, Naruto vs Kiba, Neji vs Hinata, Lee vs Gaara, and finally Choji vs Dozu. The resolution has Kakashi vs Kabuto. Part D starts in chapter 89. The first cycle is Naruto training with Ebisu. The next conflict is Ebisu vs Jiraiya, which is quick. The next is Naruto getting Jiraiya to teach him, which is also quick. The next cycle is Naruto training with Jiraiya. The next cycle is Dozu vs Gaara, and then Hayate vs Baki. Naruto training to summon a toad is the next cycle. This goes until Naruto summons Gamabunta. The next cycle is Naruto and Shikamaru vs Gaara. Part E is the final part of the arc. This says Naruto vs Neji, Shikamaru vs Temari, and Sasuke vs Gaara. When Orochimaru executes his plan, there are many fights, the main ones being Shino vs Kankuro, Sasuke vs Gaara, Naruto vs Gaara, and Hiruzen vs Orochimaru. Now, onto beats. This arc shows mastery over fast pacing with story beats several times, so I'll dissect 2 of my favorite sequences to properly display its technique. The first is the written exam. In 41, the scene starts with a feeling of worry because all of Team 7 knows that Naruto is terrible at exams. The worry is amplified to dread when Sakura realizes how difficult the questions are, and Naruto and Sasuke conclude that they are unable to answer any. The new beat is one of planning, when Naruto plans to cheat, and Sasuke starts thinking about the proctors. Sakura is also considering the rules, and decides that they are being forced to cheat. After more thinking, a hopeful beat follows when Sasuke realizes the true intentions of the test. The hope continues as several ninja begin cheating, but this is interrupted by a beat of fear when it seems like Naruto got caught. Someone gets kicked out for being caught cheating. Once again, a hopeful beat is added when Hinata offers to let Naruto copy her answers. This is all in one chapter. In 42, there is a skeptical beat when Naruto is suspicious of Hinata's motives. There's a hopeful beat when Hinata's motives are pure, followed by a fearful beat when Naruto spots the proctor watching him, followed by an inspirational beat when Naruto refuses her answers. This courage was faked, so a beat of desperation strikes, as Naruto gave up his only option of success. A successful beat hits when Sakura and Sasuke are doing well, and more ninja cheat. Another beat of terror arrives when a proctor gets physical after a ninja tries to challenge their failure. The next beat is one of impressiveness as Ibuki watches Gaara gather information. The next beat is anticipation as Ibuki prepares to give the final question. That ends 42. Fear strikes once again when Ibuki adds the extra rule. A beat of tragedy follows as ninja quit and Sakura is about to quit for Naruto. This is followed by desperation when Naruto raises his hand, but is quickly subverted into inspiration when Naruto gives his monologue. The sequence ends in relief when they pass the exam at the end of 43. Ibuki's explanatory monologue is in 44. In 3 chapters, the scene is able to bounce between positive and negative emotions at a rapid rate, which makes the story like a roller coaster. The scene rarely takes the gas off the pedal until the very end. The second piece of the story is the Team Dozu fight. The fight starts in chapter 51. The beat is fear. A tired Sakura is approached by Team Dozu. Then there's a beat of confidence as Zaku is about to set off her traps, but horror quickly follows as Dozu realizes the trap. A beat of success appears for a moment when Sakura's lock trap catches them off guard, but terror follows when Dozu counters it and attacks her. A beat of surprise arrives along with Rock Lee swooping in at the last second. That ends 51. 52 starts with a hopeful beat when Lee promises to protect Sakura. The beat is tense while Lee fights Dozu. Desperation follows when Front Lotus fails and Dozu's sound attack affects Lee. In 53, it gets worse when Lee is defeated and Sakura is being held by her hair. Her courage and cutting off her hair bring forth a hopeful beat, ending 53. 54 starts on an inspirational beat as Sakura monologues and fights Team Dozu. A beat of sadness happens as Ino watches Sakura get pummeled while she remembers their time as kids. Hope arrives as Team Asuma steps in, ending 54. Chapter 55 introduces a beat of success as Ino Shikacho works, but this is undercut by a beat of terror when Zaku attacks his ally. Hope arrives again when the rest of Team Guy shows up. Sasuke continues this when he rises, ending 55. Sasuke beats up the team in 56, but the beat changes to horror when Sasuke breaks Saku's arms. Sakura gets him to stop, ending the sequence on a beat of relief. This sequence is longer, but doesn't go through as many beats because the battles take up space and don't switch as frequently. However, this is still fantastic pacing. This concludes part 1 of my analysis. In conclusion, so far, the Chunin Exams arc has great 3-act structure and splits the length of the arc into 5 mini-movies. It has constant plot cycles for every scene or sequence to keep the story moving and engaging, and the story beats are frequently shifting in the most intense scenes and sequences, creating a thrilling ride. In part 2, I'll tackle themes, characters, plot, setting, and more. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and help me revolutionize the manga industry by buying my manga and spreading the word. All important links will be in the description.